Hello all. Today I am going to talk about how pKa affects the absorption of drugs. First, I'll need to clarify some definitions here. An acid is the molecule that donates a proton, and the base is the molecule that accepts that donated proton. For example, when we mix acetic acid, aka vinegar, with water, the acetic acid will donate a hydrogen ion to the water. The acetic acid starts off as weak acid, while water acts as the base. Once the hydrogen has bonded with the water is the conjugate acid since it can now donate the hydrogen, and the acetate is now the conjugate base since it can now accept a hydrogen ion. Water can basically act as a base or an acid because it does not ionize very well, which makes it amphoteric. Fun fact. The word amphoteric comes from the Greek word amphi, which means of both kinds. Amphibians are called amphibians because they live in water and land. Likewise, molecules that can act as an acid and a base are called amphoteric. The pH and the concentration of hydrogen have an inverse relationship. When there's more hydrogen in a solution, the pH lowers and the molecules in that solution are more likely to bump into a hydrogen and bond with it, which makes it act as a base. When there's less hydrogen floating around, the pH rises and the molecules in a solution are less likely to bond with one, and they're also more likely to donate a hydrogen ion, making it act as an acid. When we look at molecules in biology, we have to remember that nitrogen is usually neutral or positive, and oxygen is usually neutral or negative. The one exception to this is when water acidifies. Ka and Kb are equilibrium constants. They don't change on molecules no matter what the pH of their environment is, but the pH of the environment does affect how they behave. A low pKa on a nitrogen group indicates that it will probably act as a base, and a high pKa indicates that it will most likely act as an acid. A high pKa on an oxygen indicates that it will most likely donate a hydrogen and act as an acid, while a lower pKa on an oxygen will indicate that it will probably stay neutral and keep its bond with the hydrogen. When the pH is lower than the pKa, the equilibrium is going to shift more in favor of being acidic. Likewise, when the pH is higher than the pKa, the equilibrium is going to shift more in favor of being basic. These concepts are used to make drugs. It's also weaponized to make drugs more addictive. Let's use the nicotine molecule as an example. The pKa of the nitrogen in the aromatic ring is 3.0, and the pKa of the other nitrogen is 7.8. When we put this into a solution with a pH of 2, both of these nitrogen groups are going to pick up another proton, acting as a base and making the molecule have a +2 charge. Now let's say that the nicotine is in the bloodstream, which has a pH of 7.4. The nitrogen in the aromatic ring isn't going to bond with the hydrogen, but the other nitrogen will bond with a hydrogen, which makes the whole molecule pick up a charge of +1. Now keep in mind that in order to pass through the cell membrane, the molecule needs to be neutral. When a positively charged molecule tries to pass through the sodium channel, it's repelled away since things with positive charges repel other things with positive charges. Charged molecules can still pass through the membrane, but it takes a longer time because it needs to use a different channel to get into the cell, which makes it less addictive. So what do tobacco companies do to get around this? They find a way to raise the pH above 7.8, since that will make our last nitrogen group act as an acid and neutralize the molecule into its conjugate base form. Ammonia is added to cigarettes to raise the pH of them, which causes nicotine to enter your cells faster and becomes more addictive. The acetic form of nicotine tends to be more smooth than the conjugate base form. Vapes use the acidic form of nicotine, which might be part of the reason for their popularity, but it's also part of what makes them a good tool for quitting cigarettes. Please remember that nicotine is still addictive in its acidic form, so vaping is not a good habit to pick up unless it is being used to quit cigarettes. Thank you for watching, and remember to make good decisions.
And it goes a little something like